If you're new to Blender, you're probably aware that transforming objects may be a challenging task, but with the right tools, it can be easier than you think. In this video, we'll discuss how Blender can help you transform objects more quickly and easily. We'll go through the many transformation techniques that Blender has to offer as well as how to use them. We are going to see scale cage, axis locking, plane locking, and how to clear out all the transformation. You will have all the information you need to start transforming objects with Blender by the time this video is over. So let's get started. Before getting into anything, let me switch to some other view to really show some colors here. I've really made a cube with faces that match their axis colors so that the topic can be understood better. For example, the faces in the x-axis have red color, those in the y-axis have green, and those in z-axis have blue. Now that we are doing transformations, it will be simple for you guys to understand exactly what's happening. Next up, whatever transformation we do, we have to know about the use of Shift and Control keys. Holding Shift while performing a transformation will make it much more slower and subtle, while holding Control will essentially speed up the process in uniform increments. In addition, when performing transformations, there is a connection between the cursor and the origin of the object. The rate of transformation increases as the cursor gets nearer to the origin. For instance, if you try to rotate the cube with a cursor closer to the origin, it will rotate the cube much faster than while doing it from a distance. If you take a close look at the scale tool, you can see the little triangle down there. As we've already discussed, that means it has more than one tool in it. Long-click and select Scale Cage. This tool brings up reference points in all corners, edges, and faces of the cube. If you want to scale, just select any of the points there and you can see it's getting bigger or smaller. To understand it better, we are going to see this from all three directions. The top view is this one, and the side view is the one at the bottom. If you try to scale, the corner points scale it from the point that is diagonally opposite to it. Scale the cube from the spots diagonally opposite to the edge that those points are on. The points on the faces scale the cube from the points that are opposite to that face. We hardly use this tool, but it wouldn't hurt to know about this tool, would it? Next comes the axis locking. Axis locking restricts the change to a single axis. An object will only be able to move, scale, or rotate in a single dimension. There are many ways to achieve it. In fact, we have already seen how it works in the previous video. Select the Move tool and you can just move it along the x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. The Rotate tool does exactly the same, so does the Scale tool. All these transformation tools work basically on axis locking. The next way is to use the middle mouse button after engaging in the transformation. As an example, press G to move the cube and the middle mouse button to snap it into the desired axis. Press the middle mouse button again to cancel the axis locking. You can also scale and even rotate the cube using this method. The next method is by using the keyboard shortcuts. The cube will move in that axis if you hit G to move and then the key on the keyboard that matches to that axis. For example, press G and then X to move it along the x-axis, Y to move it along the y-axis, and Z to move it along the z-axis. You can rotate by pressing R along the x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. You can also scale along the x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. If you know the exact value by which you want to do transformation, head over to the bottom here to open up this menu. You can type the value by which you wish to make the transformation in this field as well. Or else, you can just type the value right after you press the axis key while doing transformations. Like, press G and X to move it along the x-axis and press 5 to move the cube by 5 units along the x-axis. If you try to do it without mentioning which axis, like just press G and 2. This will move the cube by 2 units along the x-axis by default. R to rotate and 2 will rotate the cube by 2 degrees depending on the field of view. S to scale and pressing 2 will simply double the size of the cube. The next topic we'll go over is plane locking. Plane locking restricts the transformation to 2 axes, allowing the element to move or scale freely within that plane. As we have already seen with all the transform tools, the small squares in the Move tool are obviously a plane locking technique. Even the Scale tool does the same. Plane locking only affects moving and scaling. To quickly eliminate an axis from consideration, hold down Shift and then press the desired axis. For example, if you want to move the cube along the XY plane, press G and then Shift C. This will disable the movement along the z-axis and eventually allow us to move around the xy plane. You can also scale the cube along the xy plane by typing S and then Shift Z to refrain the cube from scaling along the z-axis. Now, we are going to talk about how to clear out the transformations. If you have done a transformation and you don't like it, you can always press Ctrl Z to undo the operation. The drawback of this method is that you can only undo the operation a certain number of times. For example, maybe up to the last 16 operations by default. I'd suggest if you are a beginner, go to Edit, Preferences, and then System. Here on the undo steps, make sure to type in a higher value. I have 256, just in case I mess up big time. Just be cautious not to go any higher because you are doing this while utilizing considerably more memory. I'd say 256 is pretty much enough for a beginner. But this will undo each and every operation you have done within the Blender, not just the transformations. Go to Object and Clear if you want to remove only the transformations. There you can see each and every option to clear it, or you can use keyboard shortcuts. Alt-G to clear movement, Alt-S to clear scale, and Alt-R to clear rotation. Now, keep in mind that these operations will completely reset the transformation and it won't undo the last transformation. For instance, if you have moved the cube 2 times, using this operation will not undo the second movement, but it will just reset the whole transformation back to default values. So, just make sure you know why you want to do this. Just another thing to note is, this cube right here is moved by 5 units in the x-axis. If you clear out the movement, it won't come to world origin. Do you want to know why? That's because it will bring up the origin of the cube to the world origin and not the cube itself. As you can see, the origin of this cube is way outside of it and not where it's supposed to be. By following the methods outlined in this video, you will be able to create complex transformations quickly and easily. If you found this video helpful, please consider sharing it on your social media to help others who are struggling with similar challenges. Together, we can help spread awareness and support those dealing with the challenges of 3D modeling. See you guys in the next one.